We finally came to a clearing on the edge of the bluff overlooking the Potomac River, a beautiful spot. The four of us looked at the vista and then to each other, and as one nodded. This was the perfect place. I lifted up the box, presenting it in a manner that I intended to be ceremonial or at least respectful, grateful that disaster had been averted. I had not dropped the box. I had brought Mom safely to her resting place. Dad nodded, and I gently pulled the top of the box to open it, but it wouldn't open. I traced the ornamental cap with my fingers, looking for a catch or a clasp. Finding that, I placed both thumbs underneath the cap and pushed a little harder. Still, the box would not open. Paul coughed. Kirk swatted a mosquito. I yanked in vain at the top of the box in a most non-funereal manner, and then, shaking my head, flipped it over in my hands to solve the riddle of how to open it. 4 bright brass screws secured the stout little box. "Shit," I said. "Does anybody have a screwdriver?" Dad fished in his pockets. "I've got a dime, we could..." "No, it's Phillips." Unfortunately, none of us had anything remotely resembling a Phillips head screwdriver, not even Paul, who always had some new nerdy whatchamacallit in his pocket, but had recently traded in his Leatherman pocket knife for a new GPS locator. He could give exact coordinates of where we were, quite literally screwed, but that was all. No amount of swearing or yanking or jamming of car keys could convince the bright, shiny screws to release their grasp. Bashing the box open on a rock was briefly considered and then discarded as a violent gesture, not in the spirit of the proceedings. "We'll just have to go get a screwdriver and then come back, I guess," Dad finally said, his shoulders slumping. "Honestly, John, this is just Mickey Mouse." That's what Mom would have said. I could almost hear her reproaching him from inside the little oak box as I carried it back to the car. Our kingdom, if we had one, for a Phillips head screwdriver. By the time we hiked back through the woods, got back in the car, drove all the way home, got a screwdriver, and got back in the George Washington Parkway, we were all beyond spent. Dad pulled off at the first scenic overlook we came to and said, "Let's just do it here." Thanks. Not nearly as idyllic as the first spot, but much more accessible. It would make it much easier for Dad to come out and commune with Mom's energy. And the energy of all the commuters whipping by in the George Washington Parkway. Paul held the box while Kirk unscrewed the lid. No one said anything. We finally got the oak box open. Inside that was a plastic container, and inside that was a twist-tie baggie, and inside that was, of course, Mom. Dad did the honors, dipping into the baggie and casting Mom's ashes to the 4 winds. Unfortunately, the strongest wind was coming off the Potomac, and the blowback led to a fair amount of Mom's mortal remains ending up on Dad's pants. I remember seeing the dark gray smudge on my dad's faded jeans and looking forward to the day when the gift of forgetting would make this little mental snapshot with it, which, of course, now that I've written down, will never, ever happen. A small memorial service was planned for the next day at my parents' house. Well, I guess this was now just my dad's house because my mom was now dead. That's right. 1,001 little changes like this percolate through your gray matter as your mind tries to wrap itself around the passing of a parent. It's almost physically disorienting, like someone came into your house while you slept and rearranged all your furniture. You keep bumping into things, like my mother's bean salad. We were eating lunch back at the house after spreading her ashes, going over to-do list for the memorial service the next day, when I realized that the bean salad I'd been stuffing in my pie hole was my mother's bean salad, the last she would ever make. You can steel yourself for the painful phone calls, but there's no defense against bean salad. You just don't see it coming. I wiped my eyes and briefly considered trying to save one last bite of it somehow. Maybe freeze it. But thankfully, even in my grief-stricken state, I was able to recognize the inherent weirdness of cryogenically preserving my mother's bean salad. We divvied up the responsibilities for the memorial service the next day as follows. Dad's decades as a bureaucrat made him the logical choice to take point on the overall project management. Kirk, with his background in corporate communications, certainly had the core competencies to handle the service's program design. Paul's experience as a chef made him the natural choice for catering. And I would finally get a chance to put the tens of thousands of dollars thrown away on film school to good use as the audio-visual guy at my mom's funeral. As AV coordinator, I had 2 main items on my list: document the ceremony, I'd be shooting videos and stills, and prepare the memorial for photo album. Piece of cake. Or so I thought, till I confronted the box. The box of 1,000 snapshots, little scraps of my mother's life, most yellowed and curling under just as her toes had been right before her body was reduced to ash. Handling these pictures, the corpus of her dead memories, made me squeamish. I stayed up all night before the memorial, digging deep into the box, searching for the images that would put her life into some sort of coherent perspective. Most pictures are actually not worth 1,000 words. The only pictures we think to take are the obvious ones, the routine photo ops of birthdays and weddings, the ribbon cuttings of life. But the key moments of our lives most often start off as the cast-off variety. It's only when looking in the rearview mirror that we can see which turns in the road took us to where we are today, which routine kiss goodbye would be the kiss goodbye, which argument-ending last words would be the last words. There are no high-definition image of these most defining moments in our lives, just a smudge of memory. I wish I had a picture of my mother from a certain summer evening a couple years before she died. A family dinner out was cut short when Mom made a scene at the restaurant, and we had returned home to lick the wounds of the day. Mom making a scene had taken care of ruining the evening on the early side, leaving our family with a rare couple of hours of daylight to enjoy each other's company without having to worry when something bad was going to happen. It was finally pleasant outside, a cool breeze. Paul found an old Frisbee somewhere, and he and Kirk started tossing it back and forth in the front yard. I watched from the front steps, feeling the breeze on my face, and Mom sat down next to me. "I'm sorry, honey," she said. "Sorry for what?" I said, not really listening to her. "Tonight at the restaurant and all the other times. You shouldn't have had to take care of me in order to get the love that you needed." This was my mom, too. These rare moments of utter clarity, complete selflessness, and love in which she said things that you've been waiting your entire life to hear. I was speechless. "Honey, did you hear me?" "Yeah." I wiped my eyes and looked at my son Sam and my niece Casey running in the yard. Kirk and Paul sharing a joke as they whipped the Frisbee back and forth. Dad sitting out lawn chairs, simple, normal family moments. "Your eyes look so sad, honey. What's the matter?" Mom had said. "I just wish... I don't know." "I understand, honey." And she did, she really did. For the first time in such a long time, she'd really been my mother that night, rubbing my back, making everything all right. I got up and we ran around in the street, tossing the Frisbee back and forth. It was magic hour, that hour of perfect rose-colored light just before dusk. In the dying light of that day, all of us were beautiful. Kirk's showboating and competitiveness, just now Kirk being Kirk. Paul's awkwardness somehow adorable, Dad still spry, running around like a kid despite his 70-odd years, and Mom just smiling, drinking it all in, as close to happy as I ever remember seeing her. Why was it that these happy moments, when they happened at all, always seemed to come at the end of our family visits, as the parting gift, the set of steak knives? What I find most haunting about my family is not all the difficult dinners, not the painful silences, but instead these Frisbee games, these moments of accidental loveliness in which we glimpse the happiness that might have been. I deeply regret all the years I wasted in anger, hating my mother for not being the mom I wanted her to be. I wanted the one that all the Hallmark cards were written for, the milk and cookies waiting for you after school mom, the kiss and make it all better world's greatest mom. It was only after my mother was gone that it even occurred to me to wonder if I was the son she wanted me to be. It is the image of my mother on that Frisbee night, in that perfect, painful, magic hour light, that the passing of time has fixed in the photo album of my heart as the one to remember her by. She seemed at peace that night. I'd like to believe she found her peace, even if just for 5 minutes one summer evening before the sun went down. Mom believed in reincarnation, so who knows? Maybe she'll be luckier the next time around. I'd like to believe that too. Thank you very much.